Welcome to the For the Youth, by the Youth podcast.
Powered by fresh perspectives and vibrant voices, we'll bring you the most exciting and insightful discussions on topics that matter most to our generation.
I'm Brian Sudrain, and
And I'm Greg Glacé, and we're excited to be your hosts on this journey of discovery and inspiration.
today we'll dive into the JCC's origins, mission, key milestones, and impact on the community. You'll hear about how it all started, the challenges faced along the way, the vision that continues to drive the JCC forward. But before we dive in, let's take a moment to thank our amazing sponsors, Florida Power and Light, for making this podcast possible. Their commitment to empowering the community and supporting the dreams of the youth is truly admirable. Each episode will be diving into various careers with experts from those fields with a specific focus on the youth. And of course, we want you to be part of our conversation too. Just join us on social media at Junior Chamber of Commerce and on our website, jccflorida.com, to share your thoughts, suggestions, and ideas for future episodes, as well as to keep up with all of our content online and in person. So now we'll go into a little bit of background about the both of us. So I'll start with myself. I'm Ryan. I'm the president and founder of the Junior Chamber of Commerce. So funnily enough, I'm from a small town in France, more specifically to the east of France near Germany. And I grew up in like a small town of 1,000 people. But yeah, it was quite a big change.
All right, so Brian, how old are you?
Well, so I'm 20 years old right now, and yeah, I'm going soon on 21, so I know that's a big age in the US.
Yes, it is. Tell me about your current path. What are you doing in terms of a profession or a career path? What do you got going on?
So I'm currently in Nova Southeastern University as a junior, graduating this year actually in May. But right now my profession, I guess, is being the president of the junior chamber, and that's kind of my um part-time job. I work remotely and try to do all the kind of all background work and make it all seem run smoothly, etc. And I also recently got an internship at Advent Blankets, which is a technology company, which hopefully can give me a lot of experience.
So talk to me about you mentioned your birthplace over in Europe and in the east of France. Talk to us a little bit about your parents and what they do and kind of how you got here.
Yeah, so my parents they used to own a resort in actually that small village. And so it's on actually on top of the mountain that overlooks the village, which was kind of neat. I woke up to a view of my school and the church, etc. So that was really nice. But then after they did some wine exports to some variety of countries, but mostly China. So we take French wine from the Bordeaux area and from the Côte d'Or area, and they would export it to China, especially when China was a little bit more flexible on its export policy and import policy, and when there was a big influx around the early 2010s economically. So that's what they were doing. So I spent a decent amount of time in China at that time. Spent a lot of time out of school, much to the displeasement of some of my professors. And yeah, then after they're kind of now just in retirement, semi-retirement mode, exploring the world. So they're having fun.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned Nova Southeastern University. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on there and what you hope to attain in terms of education and a degree.
Yeah, so I'm currently studying law, and my goal is to enter law school next academic year. I'm currently doing my applications. But yeah, the great thing about the program at Nova Southeastern is it's really close to the profession, and the fact that we're taught by law school professors and practicing attorneys really makes it easy to kind of connect with them and ask kind of direct questions about what it's like to be in the profession right now. What are the obstacles that maybe aren't taught in the books? So that's really neat. And then the kind of flexibility of the program is also great. So it's allowed me to do an international law minor. There's a paralegal certification that is approved by the ABA, which is always nice, just like the program that I'm in. And then as well as the great kind of supporting system and supporting cast that allows to do competitions like moot court, which is appellate advocacy, or mock trial. So I have a decent amount of competitions as well under my belt. So, but that's a little bit of the extracurriculars as well.
Yeah. So if you you're not very far in your career, you're still in school. Tell us about your interest in being an attorney, and being a lawyer. What kind of law are you looking to study? And then be really interested to learn more about your journey there.
So yeah, I want to be an international corporate lawyer. Actually, the kind of reason I want to do that is really got helped with the junior chamber. I think the junior chamber is truly my professional experience, and I've gained a lot of experience kind of exploring different careers while trying to set up programs and just meeting a lot of cool people all over Florida, and now especially looking forward to all over the world. But yeah, I think that I saw, especially with my parents, that the role of an attorney, especially in business, is key. It's not just like kind of the making of the bylaws, etc., and then they're done. There's actually like a lot more to it that is really important. And so for me, I thought I had an intentional interest in business, but after the key thing for me was, okay, how can I help as many businesses as possible and try to make like a really big difference, as big of a difference as possible. And so the path of an attorney was quite clear because it gives me kind of a law license, which is like one of the most valuable kind of assets you can have attached to yourself in career and professionally speaking. So I think that's for me that will give me kind of an extra tool to in my toolbox to achieve whatever I want to desire, honestly. So yeah, that's kind of the reasoning behind there. And then obviously the international aspects come super international. Like in my background, I've had the chance to travel a lot because my parents are like huge fans of traveling, I guess. And
Hmm.
then I'm half French, half Chinese, so I think as soon as I came out of the womb, honestly, I was probably international. So that's kind of how it worked. But yeah.
Well, tell us about, you've been on the earth for 20 years now. What's your biggest accomplishment, in terms of anything personal or professional?
I think personally it was to move to another country and still be able to apply myself and really adapt to the culture. And I feel like not having kind of lived 50% of my life in one country and the other 50% in the other country, so France and the US, I feel like I'm a good mix and I'm able to take advantages of both cultures and both kind of countries, and gives me a better understanding of how the world works. And like for example, media wise, I'm able to read from different sources, etc. So that's really personally that's what is one of my biggest accomplishments. Obviously the language also helps. Having two
Hmm.
languages can really open up your horizons. And professionally, I think actually it's the junior chamber. I think with the amount of work we did and also the situation we started from, I think it's probably the biggest thing I've done, and it's allowed me to kind of change my point of view on like how I viewed the world and how I like the limitations I put on kind of, when you don't know, you don't know, so you think it's like limited. But I feel with the chamber with so many of the things that I was able to get in contact with and get exposed to, like my understanding of how the at least professional world works is so much better and kind of make me involved in how I think even.
Yeah. Well, we've heard a bunch about you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Greg Blasé. I am the CEO of an organization called Nexus 360, and I'm 44 years old. I know I don't look like it, but currently what Nexus 360 does is we help companies solve problems. We use artificial intelligence to help companies with marketing, branding, organizational issues. And so, really, companies come to us and they say, hey, we have this unique problem to solve. And our job is to help solve those problems and then also use AI to do it. And AI is becoming a huge part of everyday life now. So that's a quick intro of me.
How did you get exposed to AI and that whole world? Because it's kind of an emerging field. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, really, I was not paying attention to artificial intelligence at all. I was the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce here in Palm Coast, Florida. And we had a bunch of guest speakers coming in talking about artificial intelligence. The first time I remember, hearing a presentation about artificial intelligence, all I was thinking about was how can I get ChatGPT to, talk to me about aliens or, conspiracy theories or whatever, But after hearing a number of speakers kind of talk about AI and how businesses can use it and how it can really help businesses, I decided to really start to invest time in better understanding it. And what I came to find out about AI is 73% of Fortune 500 companies are using artificial intelligence. Bigger businesses have been there for years using it. Um, and so smaller businesses really haven't gotten there yet in the US. So if you don't know, small businesses are the backbone of not only Florida jobs, but American jobs. I think it's something like 80% of all jobs created in the U.S. are based on employers that have fewer than 100 employees, and so really what we're doing at Nexus 360 is looking at how do we partner with companies throughout Florida and the U.S. To help solve those problems using technology and artificial intelligence. Um, so yeah, that's the rundown.
Nice. And obviously with 44 years, that's a little bit more experience than I have. So what was your kind of where did you grow up and how did you kind of go about your life and what kind of were some of the key turning points?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's going to be a little longer story than yours, so strap
Yes.
in and get some coffee and caffeine maybe. But I was born in Rapid City, South Dakota, on a military Air Force base. Both of my parents were in the Air Force growing up as a kid, so we moved all over the country. Born in South Dakota, I lived in Philadelphia, other parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Utah, and basically, I think my career path was initially all about wanting to be on radio. When I was a high school student, I won a phone-in radio contest, and I got to the bus stop that day, and everybody at the bus stop heard me on the radio, and they were excited that I won this prize, and they were telling me how good I sounded on the radio, and that was kind of the beginning of what I decided to do for my first major career. Um, at that time, I was in Philadelphia. I relocated down to Florida to go to broadcasting school. Learned all the technical engineering of what it takes to, create a radio show, produce a radio show, air it on the air. And, I ended up producing a syndicated radio program that aired in 5 states, Tennessee, Virginia, Kentucky, Florida, and North Carolina. And that was a political radio talk show. And so when you get into radio, the first thing they tell you is like, look, take your first job, no matter what it is, just to get your foot in the door. So I didn't care about politics at all at the time. But that radio program and being a part of that really helped me understand that politics controls every aspect of your life. And so that's something that I strongly recommend people be involved with. And I know sometimes it can be frustrating and full of drama. But the reality is, especially on the local level, that a lot of why things are the way that they are can be answered because of government. And so that really sparked my interest in government. After doing radio for about 10 years, I got involved with the Home Builders Association, which is basically a bunch of builders and developers that build houses and neighborhoods get together and they help fund an organization to advocate for some of the things that they want to see to help lower the price of housing or make it easier to develop housing or so on and so forth. And so I did political work for them. I eventually ran the Home Builders Association. I moved to Tallahassee I don't even remember the year, but it was about 12 years ago. I worked for the Florida Chamber of Commerce, which is our state chamber of commerce in the Tallahassee at the state's capital. And I did work with, making sure that chambers of commerce become better and stronger. And so I helped them achieve that. And then also got involved a lot in the legislature, advocating for different issues, making sure that people understood what the issues before the legislature were and why they mattered. And eventually got the opportunity to, come back to Palm Coast, which is not far from Volusia County, where I was doing the radio program and the Home Builders Association stuff. So we launched a Chamber of Commerce here. And after about 4 years, I decided that I wanted to, not work in not for profit association management, and decided to move on to, starting my own company and helping businesses, which is something that I've been doing, ever since I moved to Florida, even with the radio stuff, so I would say that covers my career path and my birthplace, and also kind of talks about a little bit about my parents and where I came from. Last thing I'll share there, Brian, is that I was somebody that, even though I went to broadcasting school when I was 20 years old, I didn't go to college straight out of high school. As a matter of fact, I didn't go to college until I was 26. And for me, that was my educational journey, right? Like at the time, college wouldn't have meant that much to me if I had did it, at that young point in time in my life. I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to get educated and do that, and that was get involved in radio and broadcasting. And so, but eventually, when you're talking about politics and all these high level issues and economics, you find, or at least I did, in a self reflection that, look, I got to be better educated about not only my community, but everything. And so I decided to go to college at 26, finished when I was 32 with my bachelor's and master's in business administration. So I think education is a huge thing. One of the things I tell people is, education never stops, especially, Brian, when we're talking to students. It's something that never stops. You get out of high school and that's kind of not it. Even if you don't go to college or to broadcasting school or whatever, you get a regular job. Even in those regular jobs, they're going to be, telling you, hey, you got to do this training. Hey, you got to learn about the latest, whatever this is, or safety or what have you. And so, really, education is something that's always there throughout your life, especially when you get into post high school and college life. And so, I just kind of embraced that, but it took me till my mid 20s to do that. So.
Did any of the like jobs that you do either during high school or you sustain yourself during broadcasting school kind of help you appreciate more when you got into school eventually at 26?
Yeah, it did. When I was starting off radio, I was thinking, well, I don't need a college degree. I'm researching all of this stuff myself, which is kind of what college is, right? Except it's not the larger issues that you get handled in college. So the reason I bring that up is because when I was in radio and when I started to go to school and better understood economics and politics and life in general, that was to me, I think, a turning point where I really said, okay, this educational journey is important, and it needs to be something that I invest in. So, being on the air and being on the radio every single day for hours at a time, talking about current events, to me that was the time when I realized, like, hey, I need to invest more in myself and actually go to school, go to college. So.
Um, And what do you think is your biggest accomplishment on the personal and professional level since you've had a kind of longer road, there's more to pick from?
Yeah, and it's a little different, right? Like, personal accomplishments. I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old. So those are things that I think about, the personal accomplishments. The professional stuff, I think is about gonna be about the, launching a chamber of commerce from scratch. I think I never imagined I would have that radio career and that it would span 10 years and that I would do a lot of those things. And I think, Brian, I echo some of what you said earlier in your comments. It's like, hey, some of these things you kind of think as kid in high school or in your early 20s, these things aren't possible, or how do you get there? And sometimes you just need to jump in with both feet and immerse yourself in it to be able to get to, that to grow that career. So, to me, I would say the radio career was certainly interesting. A lot of people still know me from that, but starting this chamber of commerce and helping businesses every single day for the past few years has been something that's very cool. And now launching my own company. I'm an entrepreneur now. All those people that I talk to at the Chamber of Commerce, and that's what a Chamber of Commerce does, if you don't know, is they help businesses and they help make sure that businesses can succeed and grow in a community, which is really important because people need jobs and money to live, and most people's healthcare comes from their employment. So this is, I'm really in a new phase in my journey. I'm super excited about it, but those would be the accomplishments that I would say.
Awesome. So we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll come right back with the exciting story of the Junior Chamber of Commerce.
Here in Florida, every name tells a story. Just saying Ian, Nicole, or Wilma brings about strong memories. But then there's Shane, Clyde, and Robert. Together they have more than 60 years of storm experience. They stand with an FPL team of thousands, ready to respond. So as the next storm approaches, just know, our job isn't finished until everyone's lights are back on. Get ready at fpl.com/storm.
Welcome back, and thank you for still tuning in. And now we're going to jump into kind of the story of, why we're here and how we kind of met, and the story of why, this logo is the thing, and how the Junior Chamber came about. And it actually came about through just me looking for a law internship, which was kind of pretty random, but I wanted to, try to get opportunities in the professional field that I wanted to look at, which was law. And at the same time, I was in my freshman year of high school. I was in a entrepreneurship class, and there's these times where it's like a kind of split second decision where you need to make a decision. And I was encountered with one. It was, at the end of class, everyone's getting ready to leave, packing up their stuff, and the teacher was like, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention to you guys, but there's this program that they want to sign up students for. That's a mentorship program. Raise your hand if you're interested." And she didn't really give much of a background because we were kind of in a rush. Just like, do I raise my hand or not? I had kind of a pause, and I was like, sure, why not? I'll raise my hand. And so I rose my hand, and she wrote down my name, and she counted down everybody. And not many students rose their hands because they were just getting ready to leave. But I was like, might as well do it. It's not gonna cost me anything, and it could be cool. So I don't hear from it for, I think, about 2 months. And then after, we're in, AP testing and IB testing, and we're getting ready for exams, and we're all kind of studying. And we had a break period. And during that break period, I was in one of the classrooms with all of my classmates and program classmates. And I get pulled out of class from the program director, and he's telling me, "Oh, Brian, we need you right now, right now. Go down to the office." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm in so much trouble. I don't even know what it is for. I'm so done. I'm absolutely cooked. It's over for me." And then they go down, they're like, "Oh no, actually, you get on this bus. Remember this mentorship program thing you signed up for? Get on the bus now because they're about to leave, and they were about to leave you, but then they saw the list and they wanted to get everybody." So I rush on the bus, get all my stuff, and so we went to the kind of rival high school. So I went to Flagler Palm Coast High School, we went to Matanzas for their culinary program that was putting on kind of a starter lunch. And so everyone's getting matched up with their mentors, and I'm still waiting for mine, and it goes in, it's like 10, 20 minutes, etc. And it gets to the point where one of the ladies from that were organizing the program sits down with me because she feels bad that I'm sitting alone. And she goes like, "Oh, okay, hello, I'm so and so, etc." And it was so long ago, I don't even remember her name. But the main thing I remember was that through conversation with her, I found out she was the former high school principal of my high school. So I was like, "Oh, that's kind of neat." But then they informed me, "Oh, your mentor, he wasn't able to make it because he had a conflict, but here's his contact info, and we'll help you connect with him." And so that's what I did over the summer. We kind of texted back and forth, and then when the next school year started, I got into my sophomore year. We started meeting relatively regularly, like around once or twice every week or every 2 weeks, and we started talking about how I could go about achieving my professional goals, and that's where um Tony Flores, who was my mentor, he used to work for Coca-Cola, and he kind of used those insights to allow me to kind of get farther along. And one of the main things he just suggested when I proposed the idea to get a law internship was get in contact with the chamber. They will know most businesses that could at least help you and be able to get you at least a solid contacts. And there was a facilitation in how close we were because they were right across the street at the time from my high school. So I was like, okay, I'll walk down, and I'll after school I'll walk across the street, kind of try to meet them, present a good face, show them my resume, and hope for the best. And so that's what I did. And the more I talked with my friends in the IB program, the more they were encountering the same issues in whatever field they wanted to go into, whether it being also law or engineering or some type of business. They were all wondering, oh, we want to get and do the same thing. How do you get a mentor, etc. And I told that to Tony, and Tony was like, "Oh, you should kind of make it a group thing, and it would be an easier ask, and you could probably get more out of it than just yourself." And so that's kind of how the junior chamber concept started. So then we got to a point where through months and months of negotiation and months and months of leaving soccer practice way too early, they got us to a point where it was I needed to get someone that was a representative at the school and someone that was the head of the chamber at the time in the same room to then make the junior chamber happen. And it was a kind of verbal deal to they would get it done. And so I was really happy because it took a little bit to get through all the administrative kind of requirements and make sure to convince everyone that this was actually a good idea and I was committed, etc., and we have enough interest. And so we go into spring break, and we never came back from spring break because the COVID-19 pandemic happened. And so the sentence, "Oh, put the two of us in a room," it never seems so far away, I think, in the history of the world because no
Yeah.
one could be in the same room. And I was at the time everyone was kind of a bit devastated and disoriented, I would say the school system especially was. So it was kind of hit a total stop. And then a couple months passed by, and I see an article in the Observer, which is the local news journal, that the chamber has dissolved. And so I call my mentor and Tony, and I say, "Oh, have you seen this news? What does it mean? Could you tell me more about it? Can you give me some insights?" And he basically breaks the news to me and says, this is kind of over, like until like new things come up and we have new information, just kind of give up on it and don't really think, because he was also cared for me and didn't want me to waste too much energy in something that seemed a little bit hopeless. And
Right.
so, but in the back of my head, and I talked a lot with my dad who had his own business, he said, this is a good idea, and maybe it's not the right time, but you shouldn't give up on something that is such a good idea that you think it's a really good thing, and you shouldn't just give up on it. So I kind of held on to it and really thought of some concept that I could make evolve the junior chamber, because our big thing was going to be in-person internship and the close contacts and basically everything you don't want to hear during the COVID days. And
Right.
so what we did was I kind of evolved the junior chamber concept into a more of an online concept, and kind of waited a little bit during the summer. And then I think around the end of the summer, around August time, I saw an Observer article that my mom showed me actually, and she was like, "Oh, you should check this out. This could be important." And in big letter, it said "New chamber sets up," and it was Greg's face on the article in all its glory. And then it basically gave the breakdown about a new chamber starting up, and then at the bottom there was an email to say, "Reach out if you have any questions or inquiries." So I drafted the best email I could at the time, which was probably not that great. and I sent it, and then Greg received it, and I'll let him talk a little bit about what his point of view was.
Yeah, no. So basically, from my perspective, that's the first I had ever heard about anybody meeting with the schools and the chamber. And so basically, Brian comes to me and says, hey, we had an agreement with the old Chamber of Commerce. As I mentioned in the previous segment, I helped relaunch the Chamber of Commerce. So, I get a phone call from basically a student that's like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. And, to me, I thought, wow, this is somebody that's willing to reach out, step outside of their comfort zone, do something totally new to them, have the guts to ask about anything, I mean, but really have the guts to ask, like, hey, will you fulfill the commitment that the previous Chamber of Commerce made to me to start the student club? And I just was like, yeah, let's do it. And little did I know at that time that it would lead into the creation of a nonprofit and all of that. What year was that you were in school that we met? Was it sophomore year?
Yeah, it was my sophomore year, so it was 2020, and then we really fully launched it 2021. So that's when we really took off. But yeah, 2020, peak COVID days. Um,
So Brian and I sat down at a meeting. His parents drove him to my office, and we had a conversation about what the junior chamber could be. It turns out that Tony Flores, Brian's mentor, who works for an organization called SCORE, SCORE, and so what SCORE does is they help mentor actual business people. And so in this instance, Tony was helping mentor somebody who was going to be a future business person in Brian. So we sat down and I said, yeah, I'm willing to help you because chambers of commerce really do. That's what they're designed to do. They're designed to help businesses. We have access to businesses and government and all types of, really interesting people. And so to me, I thought in my head, yeah, it'd be fairly simple to, help arrange a couple of guest speakers. So with that, that was the beginning of the Junior Chamber of Commerce. But before it became a nonprofit, an official 501c3 organization, it really just started as a club at Flagler Palm Coast High School. So, Brian, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was the kind of next logical step when is to at least get something under our belt that we could refer to, and not just say this is a group of students, because this is a group of students is really loose, especially to the administrations and even to businesses. It needs to be a little bit more structured to show that kind of mean business. And so yeah, we went through quickly the paperwork of creating a club, and we started meeting virtually, and that gave us, I think, a advantage that many organizations and even businesses encountered, is that COVID leveled the playing field. So a lot of already set up organizations, well, their advantage of all the in-person events that they had set up, etc., wasn't as present. And so our quote unquote competition, which was the other clubs, was kind of put at a halt, honestly, because they couldn't make their concept virtual. But as Greg mentioned, we had a lot of great speakers via the Chamber's connections that we could tap into, and actually it made our life easier because everyone was stuck inside anyways. And so they're like, the businesses were just like, okay, I'll call in and join you guys,
Mm-hmm.
some young whippersnappers to I just aged myself. That was great. The and then they'll join and they'll speak about kind of their career, give some cool anecdotes, get them excited about potentially going into that career, and just cool Q&As, etc. So we got a really lot of cool stories, and some standouts or an attorney called Michael Chimento talking about how a stripper walked into his office, and it was kind of a little bit of an edgy moment, but it ended up, all being fine. So everyone's kind of on their edge of their seats during that story. And then on the other side, the Sheriff's Daily, who called in while he was driving to one of his colleagues' funerals. And so he still had the commitment to call in and tell us all about the kind of career of being a sheriff and law enforcement. And we had the luck that he was a law enforcement individual with a lots of experience with the FBI, etc. And so he gave us the full rundown and actually sent all members that attended the meeting thank you cards officially. So that was really nice gesture and it really showed us that there was a lot of potential. And so when we came back from kind of the heavy COVID pandemic and came back to more regular uh living style, I guess, then that's when we really picked it up and created the 501(c)(3). So I'll let Greg kind of pick up on.
Yeah, so basically, we started, having this conversation about, a school club, and it's just, it is what it is. Not to be disrespectful to it, but it's a high school club, and that's only going to go so far. Brian was really interested in making this a permanent thing that would be available for students because of the experience that he just shared of where do I go and how do I get more information about my future career field and how do I connect with people in that career field that live right here in our community. And so um, we made it a class project, or the club project that we were going to have the students work on, helping create a 501(c)(3). We at the time we were looking at it saying we need money to be able to operate, but nobody is going to give money to a non legal entity, and so we said, well, we got to start something. Why don't we make it a charitable organization, a 501(c)(3). We'll lead it. The chamber will help be supportive, and we made Brian the very first president, which made a lot of sense because he was the spark plug behind making that thing happen. And so we brought Brian on as the founder and president of the junior chamber. And honestly, I think at that time I didn't know what was gonna be next. It was just we have something cool here. We have a lot of students that are engaged. We have a lot of students that are reaching out for help. They want community service hours, for various reasons, for most likely for college, and for the applications. And so we just kind of stumbled on this program that worked, and all the students kicked in and wrote up the 501(c)(3) paperwork, and we submitted it to the IRS, and we turned in to an actual nonprofit from a club that Brian helped start at Flagler Palm Coast High School here in Florida. So yeah, that's how it all went down.
Yeah, and I remember the kind of summer after where we had a little bit of time and you had the kind of insight and kindness to take me along and we took meetings in person, kind of drove around during the summer to take a lot of in-person meetings with a variety of partners to get them involved. And we also created our board, which I think most of them are still on the board today and still very much involved. And so that
Yeah.
initial team of partners kind of came in and really solidified the foundation of the junior chamber. And that was a really cool experience and really eye-opening for me because it was a really cool way to spend my summer and to kind of explore parts of the area that I lived in that I didn't even know existed and meet cool people almost every day and, be part of an environment where you're planning for your meetings and you're thinking about, okay, how are we going to present this? Everyone has their parts, etc. And that's something at the age of at the time was 16 that really pushed me forward and really opened my eyes to, okay, this is actually really fun and engaging and I want to continue doing it. You mentioned that the chamber has a lot of contacts in government. So my main dream was one time I was going to interview the mayor, and then I was going to interview someone on the state level, and then someone on the national level, and in government. And so that was kind of like my dream. By the end of my time in the junior chamber, I wanted to have at least achieved that, to have to give us that credibility and really to give us a good place to launch off. And so that first step in local government was, okay, let's get the mayor. So Greg gets in contact and sets it all up, and have a quick conversation with the mayor before, and we're ready to set it up, etc. And then we get like big warning lights from the school saying, "Oh no, you cannot do that. That is a big no-no." And so I got called again to the principal's office, and this time it was for a bad thing. And basically they gave me the rundown that, we appreciate your kind of want to build things, etc. But because of schools kind of need to be neutral, and the principal that we had at the time actually had a bad experience that I think also pushed him to not to be really careful with having political based things inside of the school. And even though we said, oh, we'll just ask them about their careers, etc., they were like, still not possible. People can still interpret it and twist it into something bad for the school. So that was understandable. That's from the school's point of view. But for us, it really hit us hard because it was gonna be our first kind of headline speaker. We're gonna get everyone involved. I signed up so many people, and they were like, nope, no can do. And so that started a little bit of a rift between us and the at least FPC and the school. And so I'm not very, especially at the time, I was very rough edged and didn't really take no for an answer. So I still tried to make it happen with an online platform, etc., etc. And we did make it happen eventually. But that kind of created a rift between us, and they put pressure on our advisor. But to basically say, okay, I don't want to be the advisor anymore. And so without a school advisor, we're forced to kind of move places. Luckily, they did give us an option that maybe they didn't think we were going to take, but I think at the time maybe they didn't know me as well. And so we took that opportunity to move to the youth center, and they gave us a contact. And actually, the youth center gave us a halfway in the school, halfway out of the school kind of place where we didn't have to follow the school rules, and that are logical for protection, etc., but that restricted what we wanted to do and gave us a lot of freedom to invite whoever we wanted, both in person and on Zoom. And the person at the time, Jordan Butler, who was the head of the youth center, was really cool and really just allowed us to run our show. And then, if we needed help with logistics, etc., they would give us the biggest room and help promote the students, etc. So that was a really nice transitional period that helped us kind of maintain a good level and continue growing. But I saw the strength of being independent was really, really important. And Greg had the insight at the time to say, oh, with the 501(c)(3), you should create it independent so that no matter what happens with the chamber and with local politics, state politics, etc., you can still be independent and kind of achieve and take full advantage of opportunities. And I think making a place in kind of this large ecosystem, large educational ecosystem, you have to be opportunistic. And that's what we were. I think that's probably one of the defining characteristics of how we operated, was just you'd call me up and say, so and so's coming, etc. And there might be something there. And so then we would go meet with them or have them as a guest speaker, etc. That was kind of what we're all about. But yeah, I guess how did you feel at that time? Could you help me navigate kind of the conflicts with the schools? How did you react to that?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of the way of of what you said, and there's really no fault to the schools, right? They have their own rules. You can understand, at the end of the day, the school system is a government system, right? So they get a little, well, we didn't think about that at the time, right? We're just like, hey, it's the mayor. Who doesn't want to talk to the mayor? But yeah, we started running into, some conflicts and some things that prevented us doing what we wanted to do. And having the advisor, and that's the whole thing, that you're relying on somebody to volunteer their time to help out. And they did great while they lasted, but really we knew that this had to go to another level. And to me, what looking back on it now, Brian, and the journey that we've been through over the last 4 years, I really just think it's about perseverance. It's about overcoming obstacles. It's about, if you have a vision on something that you want to do, whether it's your future career or something you want to do in the community to help people, whatever it is, that these things can be achieved. But like everything in life, there's going to be hurdles and challenges that you have to overcome. It's not just going to all come together, super easy. And that was okay. We rolled with the punches. We got creative on how we were going to do what we were going to do. We eventually moved out of the school system, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But at the time, yeah, I was kind of like, um, I understood where the schools were coming from, and we were thankful for getting them to where we were, right? I think at the time we had like 50, 60, 70 students, when you were running it, and we just knew that it had to continue. I think that was the thing is, we had realized that these speakers are sharing things and it's making a difference to the students, and it's giving students, one-on-one time with people that they might be interested in learning about their careers, specifically their, whether it's the state attorney or the mayor or the sheriff, right? Like these are career fields that people are interested, students are interested in going to. But sometimes it's tough to get students and business people together at the same time. So, that was, I think, the leading reason as to why we decided to, no longer be a high school club and get back into, taking this outside, because we found that we could be, very successful left to our own devices, right? We could execute the vision of the junior chamber. We could have the speakers that we would want, and we could do the events that we wanted. So, yeah, that's how I took it, Brian.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned one part, which is the want for continuity. And one thing personally that I had to kind of think about was, okay, in my life personally, I'm about to graduate from high school at a certain point. How do I keep this going? And so, actually, we had a student that was really engaged that was called Jasmine Lopez, and she was great. And so she took over the kind of high school end, but I knew that without being able to make connections and without relying on certain students just being outstanding, this needed to still be a continuous thing and be able to grow over kind of the whole county, which is why we eventually moved out of the school and really focus on the 501(c)(3), which was most main focus during my senior year, which was 2022. I think that was the main thought was how do I keep this going and how do I keep it in a way where it's able to grow and able to meet more partners and more kind of do more cool things basically. And one program that we launched that was really kind of a turning point was the financial literacy program. I
Yeah.
think coding skills, etc., was something that had been pushed by one of our board members called Willem Verhagen, and who's a financial expert. And he really said, there's a niche for this, and there's a need for it as well. And you guys need to put something on absolutely. And so we kind of obviously followed his advice and try to put something on with Trustco Bank and Intercoastal Bank, and had decent amount of parents and students showing up inside of the auditorium at the time. And yeah, I think that was really a one big push for us. And I think also during that summer, not many people thought I was going to stick along with the junior chamber, because usually there's kind of a classic path, which is you do things in high school and they're high school level, and you keep going with the high school level things until you're out of high school. And when you're out of high school, whatever next step in your life, you start doing those next step things, and you kind of it's over for the high school level things unless there's a college level equivalency. And so for me, I was like, oh, I spent 3 years on the junior chamber, and it was so many challenges. And so why would I just kind of leave it off now, knowing that it was in a place where it still probably needed like me to be part of it, and it would be better for me to be a part of it still. Because I was the founder, and no one's gonna be as involved as the founding members are in a concept, and I still had a lot of ideas, cool ideas to put in place and still do. And so
Mhm.
I think that's really we made the concept broad, and so I was like, oh, this would be really cool. And it would also help me personally in my career, because it would give me kind of this token saying, oh, look, here's what I made, and gives me credibility, and not just any freshman walking into a room, freshman in college walking into a room saying, oh, this is just me, I'm out of high school, etc. No, actually, I have a little bit more interesting things going on that I could share about. And so that was, for me, the decision was clear. It was not really a doubt. But then logistically, it was how do we put that in? And so I think my
Yeah.
first year in college of me being remote, and you thankfully taking on a little bit more of the burden, and trying to set up the logistics, etc., and it's not really being in the schools. I think that was a big transitional year that maybe gave us some doubts, but we picked it up towards the end and made us sure that we wanted to continue. How did the transitional phase for you feel? Because I know you took a big brunt of the hit that year.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was super rewarding. when you think about the programs we put together for students, Brian mentioned financial literacy, but and the banks, but helping students, high school students and middle school students learn how to properly manage money. I got to thinking about, the mistakes that I made. Again, I didn't go to college till I was 26. So, I made plenty of, bad financial choices in that time. And so, for me, it was kind of a personal deal, right? It was like, hey, here's something that we can actually help other people avoid these mistakes. And what you come to find out is the business community is among the most philanthropic, among the most giving in any community. They're happy to come talk to students. They're happy to, you know, help people better understand their career path. And so it was super rewarding, actually. I felt like once we got out of the FPC club and we started our own 501c3 and we could do whatever we wanted to do, that things really started to pick up the pace. We were getting a lot more students. We decided also to focus on parents as well. As you recall, the first 2, 3 years was all about trying to communicate directly with students. And then, you know, the idea is really what student wants to learn about, financial literacy. The parents are going to be the ones that understand the importance of that, right? So even though some people did get it, and it's very smart to learn about how to manage your money before you start to make money, right? So, I just felt like all of the programs that we were starting to launch were being well received. We had the financial literacy. We were connecting kids with, folks that do the type of work that they're interested in doing in the future in our community. We partnered with the sheriff on law enforcement days. I mean, the list goes on and on, Brian. I'm sure you've got your own list of stuff too. But, to me, it just felt like independent. It was like, all right, we're not having to abide by anybody else's rules. Not that we're trying to break rules, but the vision that Brian had that I bought into, was one that we needed to be able to do these things. And so instead of folding the tent and saying, okay, well, that's the end of that, we can't do it, we found out, we figured a way around it and figured a way that worked better for the organization. And as it turns out, we ended up helping a lot more students. And when you think about students, going to high school, it's one of those deals that um, there's a lot going on and there's not a lot of time. And so what you do spend your time on has to be valuable. And so we felt like we're giving experiences and opportunities and information to students that absolutely were vital. And the parents bought into that, the students bought into that. And so, ever since then, we've been just kind of picking up the pace. But, to me, that's what the transition period felt like. It was, we could do our own thing, we can write our own rules, we can build the program based on what we're seeing, right? Because we're having to, listen to other people that aren't necessarily seeing the same things that we're seeing. And the example of that, one of the things that I took a lot of pride in, Brian, was that we would listen to the students to develop programs, right? Like that's the whole thing the junior chamber started with is Brian shows up and says, hey, I'm interested in doing this. That's us listening to a student and actually taking action to do something. And then when Jasmine came into the picture, Jasmine walked to school. Jasmine's interest was not so much, the same interest that Brian had. She was cut from a different cloth and she cared more about the environment. So, we said, all right, no problem. Environment, we can do a community cleanup. We can do roadside cleanups. We got Waste Pro involved and, so there's ways to achieve these goals, even if you bump up against no a bunch of times, right? And that was kind of what I was saying earlier about overcoming adversity, and that really, to me, I think it's the story of this is from COVID to the school club to creating a 501c3 to convincing businesses to give us money to do these things to actually hosting events. I mean, we've come a really long way, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited where it is now, and I'm excited about where it's going next.
Yeah, and I think where it's going next really comes from that independence and ability and choices we made initially. And I think, a lot of international speakers and people with maybe a little bit more wisdom will say, oh, life is just a line of a bunch of choices, and then you do make one choice that enables another, and then that enables another. And I think right now we're at a point in our organization where we're able to make choices that are all kind of win-win. And one of them was actually earlier this summer, and then end of this year, of my last academic year actually, I was able to go to a French American Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I was like, I like chambers of commerce. I'm French. French Chamber of Commerce meeting. It makes sense. It's just it's meant to be. So I went to French Capital Days, which was where a bunch of startups from France actually came to Miami and were looking for funding. And so when I walked into the room, actually, they told me I messed up and wasn't even supposed to be in the room. That I was supposed to be online, but I didn't understand that reading those things. And so they were like, "Oh, you're here. Okay, we'll let you in." So it's kind of going back to that perseverance and just having the
Hmm.
will to take action, because they didn't even know they posted the location. I was like, "No, you did look on the website, etc." They're like, "Yeah, but no one else came, so we just thought that it was fine." So kind of trying to be, I guess, just push the needle is probably the main theme again. And then being in that room, and then actually the head of that chamber saying, "Oh, actually, we want you to come for the second day, and we'll do it free of charge. Just get here, and you'll be fine." And it was really cool to meet all these people that were trying to make their businesses take the next step. And I was like, "Oh, the junior chamber is about kind of connecting professionals, and here's a different brand of professional that we've interacted with, that if we made the two interact together would be really cool, and if they interacted with the students, I think would be even better, and would give even a broader and more unique type of content." And so
Hmm.
every time I sat and they were giving their presentations extra, I would take notes, but my brain was going crazy at the same time, like, oh my God, how can I make this happen? So I tried to stay in contact, and over all the all over this summer, I made a bunch of calls, and actually I got really lucky that I ran into some guy in a suit in my university, and I was like, he's looking for directions, and so I come up to him. He's like, "Oh, you lost a little bit," and he says, "Yeah, I'm looking for the Levant Center, which is a center at the fifth floor of my school's library." And when I get up to a shorter level, I see there's a pin with a European flag and an American flag, and I'm like, there's something there. And when I talk to him, there's a little bit of an accent. So I used the classic intro technique, "Hello, I'm French," and it worked. And then he basically actually ended up being the executive director of the Netherlands chapter for the European American Chamber. So in the space of a week, even without planning it, I had met two influential people in the kind of international chamber world. And so I was like, okay, this is a sign I need to fully go on with it. And so actually now the Junior Chambers is has joined the European American Chamber both in Florida level and Netherlands level. And so hopefully there's gonna be some cool guests from there coming as well as some cool opportunities. But then that doesn't mean, you kind of drop everything and go international route. No, we want to do international and local. And so on the local end, we worked out a great deal with the Education Foundation, and actually that allowed us to get more access to the schools, because we're really in the schools when I was in high school. Then we went out of the schools a little bit to kind of get that strength of the legal entity, etc. And then now we need to go back in the schools a little bit more to have access to that student population, and also to that manpower that only the schools can have, honestly, that really helps. And so we actually ran two career fairs, and we're running a third one in spring. And I think a lot of the programs that we're doing, we're just getting much better attendance and able to reach many people, because it's just the schools, and they're right there, the students are right there, so it's just easy to kind of get in contact. And Greg was a big catalyst in that deal as well. So, what was your thinking at that time of kind of us going back and forth with the school system and finally getting that breakthrough?
Yeah, it just kind of like felt full circle, right? Like we started in the schools, it really wasn't the right fit for us. We went out and did our own thing and created, a brand with the junior chamber and the JCC that like, hey, we're really doing good things here. And that's kind of why, I think the school system, there was a change in leadership, number one. But number two, I think, they legitimately saw that we were doing real good, and the things that we were doing were not anything that the school system was doing, right? I think that's the important part too. So we identified a need, and we're saying to ourselves, okay, students need access to professionals. The other thing is not all students are engaged in brick and mortar schools. So what I mean is like most students don't. Many students, thousands of students, just in this county alone, do not, they attend school virtually and they're homeschooled. And these students don't have the opportunity to do anything that the kids in the school system have. They just don't know about them. So, that's another gap that the junior chamber bridged is, all these kids that experienced COVID and the parents decided to keep them home. We have something for them that they can do right in their own backyard in their community. So, I felt like getting back involved in the school system was, it's kind of like your dad said, it's the right time, it's the right place, right time. We did our thing. We went through the experiences we had to. They were difficult at the time, but it's all for a reason. And the reason for us turned out to be that we could build a stronger organization that's clearly defined. What our interests are, that we can execute those things regularly. And when the leadership at the schools happened, it just like made a lot of sense for us to get back into how can we impact more people. I think that was always the goal. We started off really strong with Brian, went through a little lull, for a little while, so maybe where we only had a dozen or so students that we were engaged with. But once we opened it up and started doing the financial literacy workshops with the banks and other things, we got a lot more students and parents involved. And so, to me, I think that's how the idea comes full circle. When it's got to be the right place, it's got to be a willing partner. You have to show value. And when we started the junior chamber, nobody knew who we were or what the heck we were doing, right? So it does take time to do these things. It does take time for your efforts and activities in anything to start to bear fruit and become noticed. And yeah, so that's how I felt at that time.
Yeah, and I think one key takeaway always when I think about the junior chamber, and I'll kind of leave that thought with our audience thinking about what their next step could be, is if you can start it now, because always the right choice is to start early, because that will give you more time to kind of build, and it will put you less in a rush. I know if I would have started it maybe 1 or 2 years later in my high school career, I would have been in a rush and been, actually, I don't have enough time, it's not far enough along to say, okay, I'm going to continue it. But since I started it my sophomore year, and even with the COVID troubles, etc., which actually turned out to be an advantage, was it made it clear to me that, okay, I had enough time to put into this project that actually it's strong enough to continue. And so I think the earlier you are, the better, because now I'm looking at my career path and saying, okay, I still have, I'm graduating this year, but I still have law school, so I still have more years to kind of be able to be stable and still be able to go and put a lot of time into the junior chamber. And that next
Mm-hmm.
transition of me going into a career is a little bit far down the road, that allows me to make the junior chamber stronger for that eventual transition, and be able to kind of take it on, and us be able to move and really be, still a constant, even with me changing roles, because the organization itself is stronger with its partners. So I think that's where, for me, that's always the thing. I'm so happy that I did, and so happy that I made that decision at the time to push the needle early. And also it changes you personally, is when you go, maybe one thing that I learned about the junior chamber as well is that when you make a decision, going out and saying, okay, what will I get out of it? Taking into account the experience part, and who will I meet, who will I learn about while doing this, rather than maybe more tangible things that you would look at that maybe are money, or community service hours, or some things that are more tangible. The intangibles are also really important. And I think that's also a little bit about what the junior chamber is about, is kind of learning about being more strong with those intangibles. And so think that's kind of the great thing with the junior chamber, and I'll leave it with that. And Greg, do you have any closing thoughts about our first pilot episode?
Yeah, I just think number one, you should be commended for sticking with it. You know, we were more than happy to hire you as the president, because you stuck with this thing for so long, and that it's truly a passion for yours. And I think that's part of the takeaway, right? It's overcoming adversity and challenges. It's actually making the effort and raising your hand. But the other side of it is going to be, that when you stick with these things, sometimes it takes a while for these things to build up. And, it's very rare for something to just happen overnight. I mean, that's just not the reality of how 99% of things happen in this country. So, to me, it's about sticking to it, and I think you should be commended for that. And look at where we're at now. We've got an organization that's providing scholarship funds to students, that's providing educational opportunity to students, and we're doing a lot of good in the community, and people sense that, and they know that it's not an ulterior motive, right? It's like, hey, we just got a group of people together that really care about helping make the next generation be as successful as they possibly can be. And so I think that's the message behind what we're doing. But it was very cool to be a part of. I appreciate you giving me lots of credit for this, but you deserve even more credit for that. And so do the people that have come along the journey, along the way, with our board members and the investors and these companies that are willing to spend time with students. So, those would be my closing thoughts. I'm just, proud of the effort. This is one of those things, you can look back on and say, yeah, we really did a lot of good, and we're still doing a lot of good.
Yeah, and I think to kind of end it off, I want to, one of the big help on this project with the podcast is our sponsors FPL, and they're really nice to kind of jump on and say we'll help you with this project. It took a little bit to get started, but the fact that now with your new role, etc., I think we really got in a good place, and yeah, I think so. A big thank you to that and to them, and I think also, looking forward to make cool podcasts and cool projects. Keep working with you and really providing the best content possible to our audience. I think that's what will be really exciting about this podcast. So I think you can to talk to our audience. I think you can join us on the next edition of the For the Youth by the Youth podcast, and we'll see you later.
And don't forget, visit the website, jccflorida.com. Check us out on Instagram and on Facebook and the social media platforms. Brian, it was great talking to you today. Thank you so much for what you've done for this community and for students in this area and also in South Florida. Thank you to everybody for watching. We'll see you again on the next edition of the For the Youth by the Youth podcast.
Thank you. Bye bye.